Hey, good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ken Clark with T.W. Perry, and today we're at our Annapolis, Maryland design studio to take a look at the LePage millwork casement windows. Now, typically we think of a casement window as basically a crank out that's sitting over a sink, or maybe in a more contemporary design that's utilized through the structure. But there's actually 3 different types of casements. So we're going to go and take a look and look at LePage's options for different types of casement windows. Come on in. Okay, so like I talked about, basically when we think of a casement window, we're thinking out the basic crank out window, something like this right here. This is an interesting display because it's going to show us a crank out as well as a push out, really the 2 most common types of casement windows. So you can see I just released the sash lock, which by the way is not only hooked here, but it's in multiple positions that are hidden. So I have one handle that's operating 3 or 4 different points of contact that are pulling that sash in to make sure it's tight. By the way, the casement window is probably the most weather-tight window, okay? Because as air is blowing against it, it's actually pushing the sash tighter into the frame, making it more higher performing against wind and water infiltration. So again, we just release the sash lock and we open up the crank, and again, this is a nice crank. It's compact, it folds into itself, and there's different types of crank handles as well. This one's a little more traditional, there's some that are more contemporary looking, and obviously in different finishes and colors. All right, so again, basic crank out. It cranks out. It's very simple to operate. Typically, like I said, the most common is over a kitchen sink, right? Because we've got to reach over the sink. We're trying to get that window open, so it's difficult if we had to operate a double hung or something like that. So very convenient. One of the drawbacks, though, to this type of a casement is the rotor gears on the operator itself. So in other words, the mechanism in there can be under a lot of pressure or stress if we've got, let's say, an older window that's painted shut. Okay, or perhaps it's out of square and it's just not fitting correctly. The wear and tear will be on this rotor operator that's within the casement itself. Okay, so I'm just going to close this up, and then you can see how this locks. The handle folds. Okay, boom, weather tight. Now the second type of casement we talked about was a push-out casement. The first thing that I look at with a push-out casement is what kind of a screen, because I've got to reach my hand into this handle to actually push it out manually. It has no crank. The benefit to this is that obviously we don't have that rotor operator, which can be a wear point, okay, over time. Now there's different screen systems. As I mentioned, this one happens to have a retractable screen. So the screen is already in the lowered position. Basically by pushing on it, I release the screen up into the head jamb where it sits in its own housing. From there, again, I'm operating a handle which also has multiple points of contact. So this one handle operates several different points to give a completely weather-tight seal. One of the challenges with this type of a window is it's blowing loose. So what LePage has done is they've added in this casement stay. It's sort of like an old school but yet very popular look with the mechanism that basically secures the sash in place so the wind can't blow it around. All right? It is an option. It's not a necessity, but I would recommend it. It's very functional, but it's also very decorative, okay? And I close the window up, and we've got an airtight seal. Let's take a look at the third, which is really what I want you to see, is that third casement that people don't really think about, okay? Let's take a look at that. This is the in-swing French casement. As you can see, it's got beautiful hardware. It's a very almost French provincial look, but yet with the proper, if we change the hardware on it, maybe change the light patterns in the grill work, we can give it a really contemporary look as well. Typically we see these things in French provincials, but as I mentioned before, the application is limitless. Now the beauty of this is that it opens up to a true French casement. In other words, there's no bar in the middle of it, which we can also have the same thing with LePage millwork with their crank out or their push out. Okay, we can allows for that lack of a center post. So we have that true French look. So you can see we've opened this up. We've got all this great air coming in, this great view, and it's extremely decorative. I've seen this go into many situations where they weren't really even thinking about a casement, but they wanted a window that was almost just like a decorative point, sort of just a different look for something. So maybe you've got other types of windows throughout the house, but yet you want something that's maybe more of a focal point. It sits maybe in a foyer, maybe it's in a master bedroom. Just something that's a little bit different. And again, between the operation of this unit and the hardware system, it just makes it very unique. Okay? So anyway, those are the 3 casement windows that are available through LePage Millwork. They're available here at T.W. Perry. You can find out more information by contacting us, or you can always call me. Hey, thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you next time.